This is the Mental Mettle Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Matt Tillman. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Mettle Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete. Welcome back to the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Tillman, and I'm here with my guest today, Coach Hollis. Coach Hollis is the football coach, boys football coach for the Elmwood Brimfield Trojans, and been there, 26 years, Coach?
This is my 26th as the head coach, my 28th overall. Yeah, it's the first job I ever got.
The first ever, and you're still
first ever. I student taught actually for my current principal. He was a biology teacher. Student taught for him. They offered me the job before I graduated, and that's been it.
Yeah, and I noticed in your bio something you told me that was I find just extremely interesting is you played at 8A Naperville in high school.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
How many kids are in that high school?
2,700. Yeah, and Elmwood itself has 170, and combined with Brimfield with 380. So it's quite. There were like 1.5 times in my high school graduating class what we have in the schools.
And you told me that you like it is definitely what you like now, but It had to be strange first coming in.
My parents are from small town Ohio. And, some of my fondest memories are going and visiting grandma and grandpa and the small town thing and all that. Not that I spent, so much time there that I would have thought, hey, that's where I want to live. But as I went from the suburbs to Peoria, I thought it was a little bit smaller, and I enjoyed the heck out of Peoria. And, I always joke at people that say, well, there's nothing to do in Peoria. I'm like, no, it's all there. It's just not in the suburbs. It's spoon-fed to you. You drive 15 minutes and there's something. And then when I got out to Elmwood, and there's no stoplights, there's one 4-way stop and all that. And as it got smaller, it just got more comfortable for me. And I just enjoyed everything about it. When I got hired, my dad gave me some great advice. He said, you need to go meet the president of the bank, and you need to ask him what civic organization you should get involved in. And I got involved in Kiwanis right away. And believe me, I skewed the age range in that group quite a bit.
Oh, I'm sure.
But that was great, monthly meetings, and all of a sudden I'm getting to meet all the guys in town that are, when you need to volunteer, who do you go ask, and they arrange stuff. And so that was great advice, was the whole get involved in the community and get involved in town. And that was great advice I got from my dad, and it worked out well.
Oh yeah, and clearly, like you said, that advice can only come from somebody who grew up in that small town and understood how important that is. Because I mean, honestly, that can be the difference in a coach in a small town.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Fred, the banker, Fred Page, was also school board president. So I'm hanging out at the Kiwanis meetings with school board president. And it certainly didn't hurt. But I find that that's, absolutely true. I've always told my wife, I said, if we were ever to have moved, we would have had to have lived in the town where I was teaching and coaching. That to me is so important, because the relationships and all of that, especially if you're going to be the head guy, I really believe you need to be there, that they see you shopping, they see you getting gas, they see all this. And, there's some stuff that goes with it that is not great, but I think I'd rather have it that way than not be known.
I'm with you. I my family and I moved overseas, and when we came back, I got a job at DMAC, and they were like, "Well, where do you got the job? Where are you going to live?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna live in DMAC." I mean, that's to
Yeah.
me that felt good. And yes, is there some things? It's tough because you said you had two sons play with you, under you, right?
Yeah. Two sons played for me, and now they're coaching for me. But there was certainly those, hey, because he's coach's kid and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
And those two understood that going in. My oldest son probably had it a little bit tougher because he's also the quarterback. And so, yeah, so he had it a little bit tougher, but he knew that going in. We talked a lot about that. And we talked about what it meant to be a quarterback, and we talked about what it meant to be a quarterback playing for the head coach. And he's your dad. And, there was some tough that went with it, but, he's better for it in the end.
Yeah, I think it's worth it. I think it's great. I think I love all those things, but yeah, you do have to be prepared. The kid has to be prepared for it because it's coming.
But yeah, and my wife, she told someone, and I absolutely am 100% with her. She says, no matter how my day went, it was my job. That's her son. And no matter how bad it may have been for me, a loss or the issues or whatever, hey, I'm an adult and that's my profession and that's what goes along with it. But she was going to pick him, and she should. That's part of being the parent. That's part of being the coach's wife when your kid's going through is, and not that we ever had issues. It wasn't like playing time stuff. It was just at times it was going to be, hey, I'm going to be the shoulder he can cry on, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And I totally got that.
I get it. I've coached my daughter and I've coached my son. You're preaching to the choir. I understand it. But I think the flip side is if you don't invest in the community and don't live there and don't become a part of it, you ran the risk of being the guy that's from Chicago, right? And
yeah. I mean, it's one of those. My kids are from Elmwood because they were born here. I am still not from Elmwood. I've lived here 28 years. They were born here, so they get to call themselves from Elmwood. But I still, that is what it is. But if I wasn't living here, that would have been a whole lot harder. And on top of that, you have this co-op situation where you have two different schools, two different communities.
Yes.
And at least by being in Elmwood, I got through Kiwanis, you get to know some guys in the Brimfield Men's Club, and you get all that stuff. But if I wasn't in town, that part of it, that whole other chunk, which is the co-op, would have been really, really difficult.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like I said, I've seen a lot of really good coaches that never fit in with the community. And some of them didn't try to. They just said, "I'm just going to come in and be the coach or whatever." And honestly, it was their downfall, right? Nobody ever trusted them. Nobody ever really. And so, kudos to you because it's clearly worked. You've been there 26 years. I don't think they're going to toss you out now. But hey,
never know.
Because you're having success. Yeah, but you never know. And I noticed that in a lot of the notes that you sent me that you run your program in a similar way in that you involve the kids, the program, the everything into things beyond football. Like that was extremely evident for me from the notes that you send to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That. I always look at that. Our job as coaches are educators. Our school has a mission statement that is based on educating students. I teach chemistry. I consider myself to be a professional chemist. I'm getting another graduate degree in chemistry right now, but I'm an educator, and nowhere in our school's mission statement does it say students will learn chemistry. It says that we're going to teach them to be learners. We're going to teach them to be good citizens. We're going to teach all that. And I believe that all the coaches are there as educators also, and we should be upholding the educational values of the school. And if we're doing that, then not only is it X's and O's, there better be another component to it. Whether it's very overtly, which we do, we sit down in a classroom, we talk about stuff, or it's just in, the little side conversations you have and how you have expectations and kids meet them and all that. But I certainly believe, I looked at it as, the most influential book that I've ever read on coaching and being a man and being a husband and being a father is called Season of Life. It's by Pulitzer Prize winner. It's about Joe Ehrman, who is a Baltimore Colt. He played, and now he coached at Gilman Academy in Maryland. And in that book, here's a guy that was the highest of the highs, and then he realizes that it was all a bunch of nonsense, and that really what it all came down to was loving each other and learning to love each other. And that book, when I read it, put into black and white everything that I thought coaching should be, and it kind of validated what I thought it ought to be. And by seeing this incredibly successful coach and team, Jeffrey Marks is the author, by the way. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and have actually become friends as a result of it. Seeing it in black and white, like, allowed me to say, okay, this is okay to do. It's okay to do all this stuff where we're going to sit down in the classroom and we're going to talk about gratitudes, and we're going to talk about, we're going to create objectives for each week. And then we're going to hit some pretty hard stuff. I always kind of remember it was about, there was a year 9-10 years ago where there were a lot of sexual assault allegations and things that came up in the NFL. It seemed like during our season, it was one of those where there's just over and over. So you know what? I threw all those guys' pictures up there. And I said, guys, everybody thinks, hey, these guys should be your heroes. I'm like, Charles Barkley's right. They should not be your heroes. You don't know that person. You don't know Charles Barkley. At least he admits you shouldn't be, because you don't know, other than the persona that he puts out there, he's no different than Stephen A. Smith. He's a WWE character. He's a persona of who, just a little chunk of who he is. I said, you guys are the ones that should be the heroes for the little kids walking the halls. That's my goal, is that you would be the heroes, because they can reach out and touch you, and they can see you, and they can understand that you have flaws, because we will have flaws. So anyway, so we get, that's the kind of stuff I don't have a problem talking about sexual assault. We talk about our mission statements, just bringing stuff up that we talk about. I think it's not John Gordon. Anyway, the team captain's leadership manual. And in that, they talk about having a planned response, that, somebody's going to punch you where you don't want to be punched, and when you're down in the pile and all that stuff. And when it happens, better not be the first time you've ever thought about it happening, because otherwise you're going to go straight to emotion. You're in a red light situation. And once you get there, and all the studies show this, once you get to that point, you have to physically be removed from the situation to bring yourself back down to a point that you can think logically again. Yeah. And so I want to put our guys in some of those situations. When you see somebody out in public that has a disability and somebody's being mean to them or bullying them or whatever, I don't want that to be the first time you see it, and then you have to wonder, what should I do? I want you to be prepared for that and say, you know what, I need to intervene. Whatever that intervention is, I know that I need to do something, and this isn't the first time I've thought about it. So that's a big part of it. We sit down and we do that. Another thing that I learned a long time ago was, I coached at Peoria Richwoods, and those guys were amazing. I coached for a bunch of Hall of Famers, and I got an education in football and how to treat kids and all that. But kind of famously, they were hands off with parents. They had created a former players booster club kind of thing. There was a funder, but they were pretty hands off with parents. And sort of early in my career, we had pasta meal set up, and that was from the guy that was before me. And I just realized that parents want to be involved in the lives of their kids. And there's very few things that if you ask for, they won't make happen. And as I started asking, and they started getting involved, and they started getting invested in the program, and very, very few did I ever felt like that gave them a voice as anything more than just a parent. They just wanted to be involved. And then that became more community, and then parents, because they're doing stuff, get to know other parents. And then the kids that are hanging out with from another school, now the parents know each other too. And then when they show up to the games, it's truly a family atmosphere.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of coaches and a lot of programs where the coaches themselves see it as like the parents and the just constantly button heads. And I don't think anybody wins that battle. No, I think it's animosity all the way through, and the kid suffers from it. Yeah. And I'm sure that you still have some issues with parents. Sure. It's still, you're not saying that's not what doesn't happen, but it's when you go into it with the mindset saying that, we're going to butt heads and I'm going to leave them out of stuff, you're going to have more problems. You're just going to have more problems that way, because you're looking for them and you're creating them. Yeah. And there's no lines of communication. So the first time they've ever talked to you, or
heard from you is the time they need to come in and talk to you with the athletic director, or they're not even going to have that conversation at all, and it's going to happen somewhere else that, whether it's social media or whether it's uptown or, at the diner or wherever. So that's never any good. And all the psychology will show that when you ask somebody to do you a favor, they then become invested in you.
Absolutely.
Right? Not only do they appreciate being asked, but now that they have done something for you, they have skin in the game and they're invested. And I think, right there, like they feel part of the program and they're invested in it. And I think it's absolutely, it's the right path is to involve the parents in focused and structured ways.
Oh, I mean, you tell the parents that, hey, this team meal that you're creating, I believe in this team meal for unity. I believe it's going to help the kids' teams, whatever. And you give them the opportunity to host that team meal or something like that. Then they're invested in it. They see what's important about it, and they want to see you succeed. And so many things. All right.
Yeah.
Rather than being controversial with them, it's
right.
so much better. I love your comment about purposely talking about these tough situations, and I agree with it, because I think some coaches might be like, well, I don't know if we want to talk about, is it okay to talk about this? Well, if you were talking about X's and O's, you would have no problem with that. You'd be like, hey, well, we don't want to see the first time we see this defense. Like, we want to know what to do when we see this defense, not be the first time on a Friday night, right? Because that's, how that's going to go.
Yeah.
And it's the
absolutely.
same idea. Well, we need to react when somebody acts like this, when somebody does something unsportsmanlike to us. It's nice to know how I'm going to react when that happens, or how I'm going to try to react, right? Of course, you have a game plan.
Yeah.
Mental Mettle Coaching is driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that will allow athletes and coaches to grow, play, and live in a positive way. We offer a range of coaching and professional development services. First and foremost, we offer individual mental coaching for athletes, and it's easily the most efficient and effective way to help athletes replace fear and anxiety with positivity and confidence. Mental Mettle Coaching has helped middle school setters to high school lacrosse middies to D1 offensive linemen. If you have an athlete that needs to improve their mindset in athletics, mental coaching is the answer. We also offer team coaching, which uses the same concepts as individual mental coaching, but applies them in a group setting. Team bonding outings are great, but they do nothing to address the thoughts and feelings that can derail a team. Team coaching does address that, and it's a great option for helping your team grow. Finally, Mental Mettle Coaching offers social, emotional learning, professional development programs for educators and coaches. There are self-paced online programs, there are virtual coaching options, and even in-person seminars available. This PD will help increase the mental health of your staff and eventually your student athletes and the culture of your school. All of the Mental Mettle coaching programs have the same goal. Our mission is to help athletes and coaches develop a resilient and spirited mindset that will help them confidently face any obstacles or challenges they seek, regardless of their situation. If you would like to see the same in your athlete, your team, and your staff, contact Coach Tillman for more information. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's preparing kids for to have the best possible outcome for all sorts of situations in life and on the field.
Yeah, and that play and response, or say the long touchdown run, and you're the defensive back that gave up because you blew your coverage, whatever it is. The other part of that is, hey, those bad things are going to happen, and the bad things are going to happen in life, and you're going to feel this emotional response, and you're not going to perform well because you're going to be pressing. Logic's going to go out the window, which your technique in all facets. And so then we can talk about what do you do in that moment? You have 25 seconds before the next play. What are you going to do? Are you going to try and do some square breathing? So let's practice some square breathing. Are you going to try and get grounded? There's Our Boys. It's a book about a team in Kansas that won 75 games in a row. And one of their players, in between plays, to feel grounded, he literally stomped on the ground. Like he would stomp his feet to ground himself, which meant he took his mind off of this emotional thing and put it into this other thing. And in that process kind of brings, and then just, hey, let's all take a deep breath on 3, and we all know, you take that deep breath, especially the double breath, and you let it out. And there's all kinds of physiological things that happen that pull your pulse back down, nasal breathing and all that. But how many times in our life does something stupid happen where we get upset? And it's like, maybe I could apply that same thing,
Yeah.
Driver pulls in front of you, get a bad grade, kid bumps into you, and that those things hopefully translate at some point.
I'm gonna pause for a minute here, because you said something, you said, we all know that. I don't think we all do. All right. So you're talking about doing things like square breathing, and you're talking about double breaths, and you're talking about grounding. Like, I believe, I agree with you 100%. I try to, but I'm telling you, as somebody who tries to preach this mission to athletes and coaches, I'm telling you, not everybody's doing this thing, and they should.
And you're right. Cause I'm 26 years as a head coach, and I was not 26 years ago teaching nasal breathing and square breathing. And
right.
I just remember that it was not very long ago at all that I had looked up square breathing, the physiological response, and we actually sat in our classroom session, we practiced it. And I haven't been doing it forever, and everybody doesn't know it, and they're not, their Twitter algorithm is not locked into that kind of stuff, because those are things they're liking, which I mean, it is amazing. Twitter's amazing. You hit some of that stuff, and so you're right, it doesn't happen. At clinics, you go to a coaching clinic, and the old heads will always tell you, if you take one thing away from it, it's a successful clinic. And I know that when I have walked away with bunches of stuff that I wanted to do, that was not a good deal. It really is.
No.
Pick the 1 or 2 things, like this might be a tweak here and there, which means that programs and people build over time. It's small. It's the whole 1% better, or whatever you want to call that stuff, but it builds over time. And so, if you were to ask me to go talk about our program, basically what we're doing now, and I was to go through this whole thing, and some young coach would say, I want to do all of that. Well, you're not ready to do all of that. It's not all you, some of it's just not your personality. It's not going to fit your situation. Maybe some ideas or some topics and overarching stuff is what you go with. But it's built. I mean, I'm so much different than I was 5 years ago and 10 years ago. And some stuff went away.
And the culture and the school that you come into is maybe not ready for it either, right? So you come in 26 years ago, and the first thing you start talking about is nasal breathing and square breathing and stuff like that. You're going to have some opposition if the program before has never had any of that grounding, and it's all just been X's and O's, football pound, that sort of thing. You've got a hill to climb for that sort of things, and it does have to be built over time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it has to be you, and it has to be you when you're ready to do that. For a long time, I felt like I wanted to tell my players that I love them, and I wasn't emotionally mature enough to do that. And now I tell them every day, and it's not a problem. But if I was doing it because somebody said you need to do it, it wouldn't have been authentic, and it would have been fake, and now they know it.
And they would know if it's not authentic, right? We gotta give them credit for there. A couple of things that you hit on a little bit that you've talked about. There's some things you said about your program, and I'm gonna see what I wrote down here. And there's a couple comments I have on it, but I'm gonna just say it. You said you wanted them to live you wanted the boys to live significant lives, and you celebrate effort over ability, which is fantastic. That's a mindset Carol Dweck thing. You've probably read that book. If you haven't, you should. You talked about having selfish actions, which is fantastic. But then the one that really caught me that you said that because I've seen those other things. I've seen coaches say this. You said you wanted your boys to be able to defend the cause of the oppressed. And that one struck me, because I've never seen a coach put there for something he's trying to do in his program.
So the season of life, Joe Ehrman, after he got out of the NFL, he ends up becoming a pastor and moves his family to the inner city of Baltimore, even though he had all kinds of financial means to not do that. because he wanted his sons to grow up around the people that he was preaching to. And that was a group of people that needed help. They needed to be defended. They were oppressed for economic reasons, social reasons, racial, whatever it was. And in that book is the first time I ever saw that. I mean, I will tell you, that's pretty well directly stolen, the terminology there.
It doesn't bother me at all. I steal a lot of things.
Yeah. But then, for me, having two daughters with Down syndrome, knowing that they would be the first to go through our school district. I mean, we are a small school district. Usually we've had students with special needs that have gone other places. Knowing that in life, they would be easier people to pick on and things like that, it became very real that I told our guys, you need to be the heroes walking up and down the halls, but you also need to be the guys that are going to look out for my daughters. And you need to defend, you need to be ready to defend them. But there's also a football component to that. There's the football component to defending the cause of the oppressed, and this, I don't know if this sounds, it's not harsh. If you're a superior team and you go play an inferior team, it would be really easy to start showboating and not playing the game the way it's meant to be played. And, it's really easy to fall into that trap where you're just a physically superior group. But those kids went out expecting to play football on Friday night, and they expect to go out and play the game the way it's meant to be played, whether they are talented, not talented, whatever. And if you play it the way you've been coached to play it, and you do the things you're taught to do, and then you are actually defending them by showing them you're honoring the game, and you're defending them and their opportunity to have a good experience, no matter what the score is. Because if the score is going to get out of control, it's going to get out of control either way. But there's a way that can happen, and you're not being a jerk about it. And there's a way that can happen where you're still helping them off the field and, getting them up off the pile, and you're doing all that stuff. And both teams can walk out like, all right, we got to play with each other. That's that whole idea that we're going on Friday night to play against. No, we're playing a game. You play games with people. They are your opponent, but you are not against them. If they didn't show up, you don't get to play. You have to play with them. It's playground stuff still. So we need them to be along just as much as us. And in that way, I think you can defend the cause of the oppressed by playing the game the way it's meant to be played and honoring your opponents by giving your effort doing exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, going into a game and honoring and respecting the game pays a lot of dividends. It translates to a lot of, the sportsmanship. It translates, I'm sure, to the officials as well, right? You don't have, it's the same thing. You don't have a game without the officials. You don't have a game without the other team. Showing respect for them and the game. It's a very useful trait. Yeah.
I remember way back when Cully Welter was still over at Aledo and the Green Dragons, and they were winning championships and all that. And we went over, and I mean, it was, we just got shellacked. And yet you walk off the field and you go shake Cully's hand. You're like, hey man, thanks for treating us well. And thanks for not rubbing it in. And good God, the running clock was at the start of the second, but that didn't matter because the way he did it and the way his kids did it, you're like, okay, that happened.
Well, it also made you something. You come out of a butt kicking, right? And it inspired you to. That's what I want to be. Not. I hate those guys. Right.
Yeah. You had Toby Vallis on a month or so ago, and he and I have become pretty good friends, and we've both been on. We joke. We've both been on both ends.
Yeah. And most of us have, right?
Yeah. And you need to remember what it was like to be on both sides. So that when you have the opportunity to do that, you do it the right way and you don't take advantage of it. And hey, I'm not perfect. And I've had my games like, man, I wish I had that one over again. I made that mistake. When that has happened, I have tried to get a hold of that coach. Once I've realized it, once I've gotten far enough back from the game, I'm like, man, I screwed that up bad. And at least let them know I'm aware that I made a mistake and I apologize, and hopefully they'll accept that apology. But we are as much as everybody wants to say the coaches should, we're human just as much as the boys. I'm going to call the wrong plays. They're going to block the wrong guys. Parents are going to tell us to throw the ball. All that stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
And we're all going to make our mistakes, in life. Nobody is perfect. So
I had to bring that up because, again, that's not something I see on a lot of teams, like ideas, and I love it.
Yeah, and
yeah.
So we're very involved with Easter Seals because my daughter started going to Easter Seals to receive the therapy. They both have Down syndrome, and when I was there one time, and this is before Meg was 1, we walk by a therapy room, and there is a girl with cerebral palsy. And it is a milestone for her that she can step over a hula hoop that's sitting on the ground. One foot and then the other foot. And the cheering in the room and the parents and the girl and all. And I thought, my gosh, our guys need to see this. Because her level of effort is 100%. And that
effort
is
over ability. Yep.
Yeah, and that is worth cheering for. And so we got involved with Easter Seals. Well, then, so that we tour and we have families come out and talk to us and all that, because I want to make sure that, our guy, we sold 30 or 40,000 t-shirts, and they all have the Easter Seals logo, and they all have our slogan and all that stuff on the back of it. And the money is one thing, but I think that I still see t-shirts that were, 10 years old, because I know all the different schools, and when they did that one, I still see 10-year-old t-shirts walking around Peoria with this logo and the slogan on the back. And I think every time somebody wears that, that's planting a seed, and somebody that intellectually is different, physically looks different, has some sort of disability, that might plant a seed that says, you know what, we're going to defend that person. We're going to, we're going to treat him the same by not treating him the same. Sometimes is the way you have to do that. And gosh, I don't want it to be the first time when they run into that situation.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and you had mentioned to me that when your daughter was born with Down syndrome ended up being one of the best things that's ever happened to you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
and that, to me, I get where you're coming from, and I understand that. That has to have you have to have a mindset to be able to allow those sort of things to become the growth opportunity.
Yeah, and then you see what happens to my sons, that they've grown up with some disabilities in their household. So, one of them now volunteers at Special Olympics. And, that's just opened them up to be better sons. So we do all this Easter Seal stuff, and I, family comes out, and then they, to present to us and talk to us about whatever challenge that their child might have. And then they leave, and I typically ask them, how many of you guys have a relative that's either received services at Easter Seals or has a disability? And you are amazed at the number of hands that go up in that room, and nobody knew it. And, when I was young and going to high school, there was a separate room, and kids with disabilities was a separate room, right? And so there was maybe PE was where you saw each other, but other than that person was not a classmate. And I think that has, even though that has changed a little bit, or hopefully changed a whole lot, hopefully what we do makes it even more. That, when you're out in public, it's, when you're in school, when you're sitting in the cafeteria, it's just another student,
Yeah, again, and we all, and we're talking about different ends of the spectrum and because there's all sorts of disabilities, but even among individuals without disabilities and your players, like kids are born with more and less ability than others, right? And if you can learn that it's the effort over ability that matters, that's how you develop that growth mindset in your players, which is how you grow.
The one lesson for sure that I do every year is the parable of talent. And not from the biblical perspective. It's a secular story. Yes. The thing I don't like about the story is the guy with 10 talents comes back with 10 more.
Yeah.
But man, how often do we see the guy that's got 10 talents and doesn't bring hardly any of them? And so we talk to our guys, I'm like, guys, who would you rather have? The 10 talent guy who only puts in 70% of what he, because he knows he can get by in practice, because he knows that on any given play, he is still faster than everybody else out there, especially scout team. He's faster than all the guys on scout team because the starters are still. So, so would you rather have that guy? And is he going to get much better? Because we do a lot of sprint-based stuff. I'm like, if you didn't run your 40s full speed, are you ever going to get a faster time? And they all know. I'm like, well, then if you don't practice that way either. I said, who would you, over the course of 4 years, the kid that starts with 5 and suddenly it turns into 6 and that 6 turns into an 8. By the time he's a senior, he might still be an 8, but man, he's got a ton invested. So it's not just physical anymore. There's emotional investment and there's teamwork investment, and the guys around him are seeing him doing what they're doing. And now you've got that. So I think that whole thing, like framing it that way is like, you need the best among you have to be the best. But at the same time, the guy that's, let's go all the way down to a 1, the guy that's the 1. Well, if he becomes a 2 and that 2 becomes a 4, suddenly that's a guy on scout team that's giving you honest reps. And now that means that's somebody that, you're going to be better on Friday nights. So we need everybody to get as good as they can possibly be so that we can be as good as we can be on Friday nights. Because I don't know about the teams you've had, but we've had some teams that were really good with our first group, but we didn't get much work out of the scout team. And then you go into Friday night thinking you're really good, and man, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's especially important when you're talking about a school like the size you're in.
Yeah.
Right? Great guys, great, but by definition, you have less talent and less body, so you have to get the most out of those guys.
Yeah.
Like some of your starters are probably not challenged for their starting spot whatsoever. Right.
Yeah, this year we have a returning 4-year starter at tackle and returning 4-year starter at linebacker. Guess what?
Nobody's challenging it, right?
No. Although the hope is, and so I do these home visits, and our junior left tackle, I went and I said, Barron, it's like, honestly, you're sitting behind Aaron Brown. Aaron Brown's a 4-year starter, and he's 6'3", 320. I mean, he's a big dude. I said, your goal is to go steal a few plays from him in a game. You're not going to replace him. He said, I understand. I said, but if you can get him off the field for 4 or 5 plays, and that gets him fresh, that makes us better. And then maybe your 4 or 5 plays turns into 7 or 8. And then maybe you end up going in for quite a while, and he just has to worry about defense. And so I think, there's that, but there's also this idea of, you might not be able to beat that guy, but can you be good enough that we can get him off the field for a little bit? And so then we start calling plays, as a play caller. All right, I know I'm going to be pretty focused on what I'm calling when I have these guys in so they can be successful and we can be successful. And it's good for the team because fourth quarter and weeks down the road and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so much there, just making sure the kids are putting in the effort, giving them these small little goals to reach for. And it just helps the team. Something else I wanted to mention, you brought up this idea. What did you write? Oh, you have twice a week, you have what you call the Men of Virtue meetings. Did I get that right?
Yeah. So that started after
I'm very interested in that. Like, just the way you phrase stuff, I'm loving it. Like, what does that mean?
All right. So that was, there's a coach out of Texas, D.W. Rutledge, who's kind of, if you were to look up Texas high school football, he's one of the kings of high school football. And he wrote at one point, he and another guy wrote a manual because they were doing these things, and they had a manual. It's, it's kind of a cookie cutter, you buy the box from them and it's all these things, you hand them out to your kids and every week. And I did that one year and realized, hey, this is pretty good. And actually I did it because I think a coach at Moline, I listened to him down at U of I talk, and he was using that exact program, and I've been looking at it. And then I realized, it was good to get started, but like any good teacher, you take the textbook and you push it aside after you get the ideas and you make it your own, right? So I took some of their stuff and then I added our stuff. And, every Monday before we watch films, and this is JV and varsity, everybody's together, And our guys have, they have a bound packet they get. The first thing they do is walk in and, hey, what are 2 gratitudes from the weekend? What are 2 gratitudes since we met last? And we share them, and the idea there is, no matter what life is throwing at you, if you really sit and think about it, you can find 2 things to be grateful for. And it doesn't wipe out the issues. It doesn't suddenly, there's no magical thing that makes sadness and depression, all that go away. But studies do show that if you write those things down, you're fighting this stuff, right? You're starting to fight that stuff. And, we'll get guys something, hey, I am just thankful for Twinkies. Yes, good. Or I'm thankful for my grandpa for whatever it happens to be. But you get those opportunities so we do that. Then we have words of the week. There are words you're supposed to know for the SAT, ACT. So I find stuff that is kind of football specific and kind of goes maybe with what we're learning. Or what we're focusing on as a team, and can I take this vocabulary word and kind of slide it into a football context that, then maybe they can turn around and slide into their English class in the week. And every once in a while we'll get guys that do that and they get kind of blown away. And then we do schedule, because I think that's important, because guys, there's not much left in your life for you to do homework,
right?
So let's make sure we all understand what the schedule is and write down when you have tests coming up this week. And then we jump into our lesson for the week.
So what do you say to a coach that sees all those things that you're talking, the gratitude, those words of the week, some of that stuff? What do you say to a coach that says, I just don't have the time for that?
We aren't spending any more time than we are already spending, right? So I had that probably the second or third year we were doing this. We had a 1 in 18, and had the dad come in and talk to the principal that we should be spending the time on the field and not spending the time in the classroom and all that. And my response was, we're already in there for films, and it takes us about 20 to 30 minutes to do this. So if you already got your guys in there, and it's only, to me, that's Mondays is films. We're already in for films. Let's take the extra 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Thursdays, okay, we go out on the field to do all the stuff you do for pregame practice. And then the parents have pasta meal ready at 5 o'clock. And I'm like, well, we got 40 minutes. So the kid's just going to go drive around to Casey's and get in trouble uptown and do all that and hang out in the parking lot. No, let's go from pregame, go sit in there, and then go eat. So there was no more time in our schedule. We didn't ask anything more of our kids, really. Maybe 20 minutes on the Monday. But again, that's one where you have to decide.
But you brought it up there, the fact that the idea sometimes has its detractors, right? Like they should. Why are they in a classroom talking when they should be out there
banging
hitting
heads.
pads and doing and I think I know it's worth it. Yeah. And I'm from you. I can tell that you say it's worth it as well. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Mettle Coaching now offers professional development for coaches, explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Mettle Coaching today. No amount of athletic talent or physical ability can overcome a poor mindset. Anxiety, fear, and negativity will always diminish an athlete's abilities and limit their success. If you're not intentionally developing your child's mental toughness, then they are not reaching their full potential. Mental Mettle Coaching provides the individual drills needed to build the positive mindset necessary for success on the court and in life. Contact today to schedule a free coaching session and start building mental toughness in your athlete.
Yeah. So let me go back to we should be spending more time to whatever. We've been doing this for a long time now. And over the course of that time, we've been pretty successful. And I absolutely believe that we have won games because of the time we've spent in the classroom. Because I've been in huddles, big time fourth quarter where it's important huddles, where guys have brought up a story. Hey, let's burn the boats. Cortez thing. They brought up a vocabulary word. They brought up hey, this is like when we talked about whatever. Hey guys, we need to like they have brought that stuff up. And I tell my guy, and so to me, it's you create this shared vocabulary and this shared experience, and it gives them an anchor a little bit. So I absolutely believe, and guess what? In that 1 and 8 year, we played, so in that 1 and 8 year, we had 56 playoff points. Right? So if you're a guy in Illinois, 56 is massive. The only team in the state that had more than us was Joliet Catholic. We played seven playoff teams. All right, the way our schedule, because we had this mega conference. 4 conferences came together, and we had been good, so we got we got everything lumped in on top of us. It wouldn't have mattered how much we were practicing.
No.
We didn't have the horses that year, and so I look at that. I'm like, if we didn't have this, what would the points of the season be? What are we getting? I mean, the game of football is great. I'm like, at least I can look and say, we did this. We did this good stuff. We still did the Easter Seal stuff. We still came up with things that we're grateful for. We still built vocabulary. We still talked about things. The guys still had those opportunities. So you take all the wins and losses away, and there is still this. I don't know what it would be like to be a 1 and 8 football team that there was none of that.
Well, it'd be miserable. It's miserable, is what it is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't. It doesn't take it all away. But certainly, I would think that 5 years later, 10 years later, as a kid, when you look back on it, it's not as. Maybe you remember some more good things.
Well, I think that anytime you can talking to kids about mental tools or ideas that they can employ during the game of football, our hope as the adults in the room is that they learn to use those tools outside of football. And whenever I like to say that athletics are controlled adversity, in the sense that it's adversity. We want to win and it's hard and we get upset about it, but it's controlled. It's not life or death yet, but it's going to be someday. Right. So, but you have to, it's like you said, if you're more prepared for these things, if football helps you face some demons and face some adversity and you learn how to deal with it in the right way, you're better prepared.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. I tell our guys all the time that, in football, playing time is how you get paid, right? Some guys make a bunch of money. Some guys don't make very much money. Unless you're 2 ways all the time, you want a raise, right? This is a pretty safe place to learn how to walk into a boss and say, I think I'm doing a good job. I'd like to get some more money. What do I need to do to get there? Like, the worst thing I can tell you is, no, you're not getting any more playing time. I'm not going to fire you. Not, none of that stuff. Probably, though, what you're going to realize is if you go in and approach it in the right way, and then I had to talk with them, hey, we're going to give you a shot. We're going to find, fine. We're going to get you on a special team. We're going to get you some, or here's what you absolutely have to do for us to even consider it. But yeah, like you talk about life lessons that are learned here, like that. Hopefully, everybody at some point would like to make a little more money for their family, and they're going to have to go ask their boss about it. And what a great place to learn that, where, the worst thing that happens is I say, no, you're still got the same food on the table.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like most coaches I know, and if a kid has a problem with playing time, they want the kid to come to the coach first, right? And they don't want to, it's not a place for the parent to be involved. And I think a lot of parents read that the wrong way. The good coaches are doing it because they want that kid. They want that open line of communication, and it gives an opportunity. I've never met a really good coach that didn't want to have that conversation with a kid. And now it might be a blunt conversation.
Yes.
It might be like, hey, but like, here's what you're not doing. You're not doing what we ask. You're not doing this. You're not at the level we need you to be. But it's a conversation most coaches want to have with that kid if they come in and ask about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
What do we miss, Coach? Anything else? I love the way you're running your program. I love all these things you're doing. And let's keep in mind, you've had a fair amount of success over the years too. I always like to put that in.
Yeah, we've done all right for ourselves. I tell the guys, our mission statement, which you read, is our mission is to develop young men who lead significant lives. And so I talk to our guys in these classroom sessions, the men of virtue. I said, everything we do in there is about being significant. Success is what shows up in the Peoria Journal-Star on Saturday morning and tells everybody what our score was, right? That's success. But the significance is, but then after that paper goes away, as a coach, as a coach, you lose that game, you feel like you're walking around town for the rest of the week and people are looking at you. Like you really do. I mean, as much as you'd like to think that it doesn't matter, like it does bother you. The people in town are not, most of them aren't, most of the people read the score in the newspaper and they throw it away and they don't think about it ever again. But if we're significant in what we're doing, then, 10 years down the road, when that player is having their first or second child and they send you a text with a picture, oh my gosh, talk about that, or something has come up and they've been prepared for it and they tell you, Coach, I was prepared because of something we talked about in the program. And the success, though, has come along, and I believe the success is there because of and we have good coaches. Trust me, we've been around a long time together, our coaching staff, and what we do is I have 3 generations of coaches right now. I have 3 different levels. I have a guy that played for me in 2013. I have a guy that played for me in 2003, 2013, and 2023. Right? They're all my coaching staff. And the first day they walk down to practice, it's the same drills, the same plays, same stuff.
Yeah.
Like they know exactly what they're doing. And I think that's, you asked what my definition of mental toughness is. To me, mental toughness is when what you're doing gets boring and you can still go find a way to get better at it.
Success sometimes is boring. If you want to be great at, if you meet somebody who's great at something, they probably do some really boring stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then they go find a way to do the boring stuff even better, right? I always kind of joke about 15 or 20, probably about 20, 25 years ago, Caterpillar came out with a farm tractor. And it had tracks on it, it was a Cat Challenger. And it didn't last very long because guess what? They're not tractor people. That's John Deere, right? Yeah. That Caterpillar thing kind of went away. Man, you build a bulldozer, I'm gonna go buy a Big Yellow. So,
right.
So anyway, I think that's a little bit. I think the mental toughness, the idea that, hey, we're going to go do something and we're going to do it till we're bored and we're going to do it some more and we're going to try and explain to our guys and get them in a mind frame that I can still get better at this thing that I think I'm really good at. Because my guess is you go, like you said, you go look at all these super successful people. They are pretty focused in what they're doing. They're successful at very few things, and they're just really, really good at those very few things.
Well, that boredom or that, and I don't know if I want to say boredom, but I get what you're saying. But that constant repetition all the time, that lends itself a lot to confidence for a specific, for confidence overall. It means you believe in yourself when Friday night comes, right?
Yeah. So if we're all educators, we want our kids to react. First, our kids are great critical thinkers and they're problem solvers. And things happen in the middle of the game that we didn't prepare them for, and they have to react to it. And hopefully they have enough in their minds that they can see this tendency or this situation and apply it in a different way. A number of years ago, there was a great Olympic softball pitcher named was Jenny Finch. He went around the major league during spring training with pitching, and she's dusting dudes off like Barry Bonds wouldn't let anybody be in the an outlet full host, and it's called chunking. It's the same reason that chess masters are good at what they do. They see this global thing, whereas you and I assume when we play chess, we see individual pieces on the thing. Well, when you do it enough over and over and over and over again, you're able to play faster. then, that's the whole thing. Yeah, we all want to have better 40s. I remember Jeremy Adolphson, who's at Monmouth Roseville, when he was at Allwood Rova. We exchanged some films one time, and he had a really good team, and he came over to my house and we were talking, and I said, did you think you'd be this good? He said, no. He goes, on paper, and the guys we put on the field were not as good as what we are right now. He said, but they've all played since like their freshman and sophomore year. He says they're playing so much faster than what they physically can run. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of it. That's when you just decide, I'm just going to do it so much that you just get so good at it that you play faster than, because when your conscious brain shuts off and your unconscious brain just lets you go, and our bodies are a lot better.
And that's what it was about those baseball guys, is they have superhuman speed and ability to hit a baseball thrown in a certain way, in a certain angle. And the second they had Jenny Finch throwing at you from down below, that chunking didn't work, right? And
right.
If you know what you're trying to do and you know what you're trying to accomplish, that's practice is how you get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best experiences as a coach is when it's a tight game and you go out to the huddle and the kids are telling you what they want to run and they know why they want to run it. And I mean, they have total understanding.
Oh.
And you're like, my gosh, this is so easy.
Even if you don't agree, coach, let them run it, right?
Yeah, very, very rarely are they wrong.
Yeah.
Now, I've gone out to huddles where guys were calling stuff. I'm like, you guys don't know what you're doing yet, So no, you guys are totally wrong on this one. Just trust me. But as you get your good groups, they really get to that point.
Yeah, it's and that's a fun thing to see whenever they get there, and to have them build that confidence and build that. So many good things you're doing with your program, Coach. I really enjoy it. My last question I always ask is,
sure.
What did I not ask you that I should have? What did I miss?
I think I would answer it from both sides. As I've gotten older, I've had the opportunity, maybe I didn't think about it at the start, but to become friends and maybe a little bit of a mentor for some younger coaches. And that has been great for me. Just seeing some guys grow and seeing some guys improve, and being a guy that can get a phone call and they can say, hey, coach, I've never gone through this experience before. Do you have any suggestions? So I think as an older coach, find the young guys in your conference, the new guys, give them your phone number, text them once in a while, check in on them, see how they're doing. And then as a young guy, I wish I had that. I wish I had gone out and sought somebody. I mean, I had the guys that I knew from Richwood. But if I was a young guy, I would say a young head coach. Go find some other head coaches that you trust and that you look up to, and just there so that you make enough relationship that you could make a phone call if you needed to. Because I think that's probably the thing that Huddle has taken away from us, is the Saturday morning. I mean, for me, it was Dennis Larson at Abingdon. His name is actually on the Knoxville football field because he got his start there. But Dennis Larson for me was the old guy that we would meet at the junction at McQuan, and he would have just been farming that morning, and we'd sit and talk for whatever. And still today, when I see him, I'm so excited to see him. So Huddle kind of took that away. I think it has to be a little more intentional now, but maybe the social media and texting and all that has opened that up again.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, to be able to be vulnerable enough to receive some coaching and being, you have, as you get into it, you have things that, like you said, things that you developed over time that you've kind of forgotten. And those new guys, gals, coaches, they don't have all that. And I think having a mentor like that is certainly helpful. It's great advice.
Yeah.
So, well, Coach, I sure appreciate the conversation. It's been great. A lot of things to learn from. Hopefully people pick stuff on this. And anytime I'm meeting with a successful coach and he is, or she is, doing these things with the breathing and just focusing on the mental part and knowing what's best for the kids beyond the sport, it makes me feel, I know that some things are headed in the right direction. I love it. So,
Yeah, I agree.
all right, Coach, I sure appreciate you. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. You can't make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, or perhaps you've heard it or even said the other version. Regardless, good coaches should not blame a lack of success on the players they get to coach. It's a lame excuse, and I'm sorry if that ruffles your feathers. But it's your job as a coach to develop your players. If your athletes lack skill or mental toughness, it's your responsibility to develop it. But how do you make today's athlete tougher without risking breaking them? Well, Mental Mettle Coaching now offers professional development for coaches explaining how to do just that. The program is called Ember to Inferno, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. It teaches real tools and tangible methods that are proven to increase the mental health and toughness of athletes. The program is available as an in-person seminar or as virtual small group coaching. Don't wish for mentally tough athletes. Build them. Contact Mental Mettle Coaching today. We talked about this in the interview, but I want to read to you the mission of the Trojan football team with Coach Hollis at the helm. And it says the mission of Trojans football is to develop young men who lead significant lives that celebrate effort above ability, are selfless in their actions, and defend the cause of the oppressed. And we stress that praise is the path to victory. I mean, that seems a lot more in depth than a lot of teams that I talk to. And again, some of that isn't, but some of that is so well written and gives such a purpose for his team, for his program, for himself. When he talks about living significant lives and how he mentioned, and he was very clear about how significant isn't the same as success. Success is, again, what you see in the paper. Success is the record. Success is what society says it is. Significant is different. You can have a 1-8 season or any losing season, and it can still be very significant. Significance ends up in the way that the ripple effects change others and change communities. And when he talks about getting a text or getting a note from a player in the past and talking about how he used something that was taught in a classroom or on the field, you know that kid or that adult now is employing some of those ideas with their own family, their own kids, in their relationships. That's significant. You can have success on the field with your team and have a great record and not necessarily be significant. All right. There are situations where talent just wins and situations end up what they are, and you are successful, but not significant. But chasing significance a lot of times leads to success, but chasing significance, now that's a worthwhile goal. And then when he also talked, and that's part one, and then the other part he talked about celebrating effort over ability. If you've never read the book Mindset with Carol Dweck, There's a lot of research behind this idea on why it's so important to celebrate effort over ability. It teaches whatever we praise becomes the focus of an athlete, of a child, of a student. And if we praise ability, let's say a kid, out of the womb can run a, 4.4 or something like that. You know what I mean? Without any effort. Or a kid is naturally gifted academically or athletically, and we praise that. That is not done by anything they've done. They were just born with great genetics, and that happens. But if we praise that, they don't understand how to get better. They are at their limit because of birth and genetics, and we don't get anything else out of them. But if we praise effort from the beginning and praise how hard they're doing, they will see progress and understand that it is the effort that got them there. And if that's the case, the sky's the limit. Individuals with lower ability can eventually surpass individuals with higher ability because they've been praised for putting in effort and praised for working hard and work ethic. It is a longer stretch of time, and it's the long road, but it's the best way. And if you're teaching kids early on and in high school and whatever that effort is more important than ability, they're going to be set for life, because they're going to know, oh, it doesn't matter if I can do something now, or if I'm not good at something now, all I have to do is put effort in and I'll be better at it. That's a powerful mindset. Like, I'm not good at mountain climbing, or I'm not good at accounting now, or I'm not good at finances, or I'm not good. Put whatever you want in there. I'm not good at it now, but all it takes is a little effort and I'll be good at it. And that's a powerful mindset. And then of course, talking about being selfless in his actions, and just, you see that in so much he's doing, and how he's being very important on gratitude, and being gratitude for others, and respectful of others, and honoring the game, and being less focused on themselves and more focused on others, to the point that, again, the part in there that really caught me is to defend the cause of the oppressed. I've never seen that in a football coach's, or any coach's mission statement. And while I love it, when I first read it, I was like, it seemed out of place. And it was certainly something that was created personally from him. He has a daughter, 2 daughters with Down syndrome, and that obviously heavily influenced his decision to talk about that, about how important it is to defend the cause of the oppressed, and how it is our job to honor and respect those individuals. He talked about how it translated in football, and how you want to honor and respect the game, and how you have to have opponents to be able to play. You can't just, beat nobody. You have to have somebody to beat. So you have to honor and respect the game, those opponents, the officials, everybody that has a hand into it. And that's gratitude as well. But it's coming from the idea, he's translating it to football, but he's coming it from the idea of, as the individuals that are not disabled, it is our responsibility to honor and respect humans, individuals, and understand that if somebody's bringing down someone with disability, they're bringing down all of us. We as a group, we want to rise together. We want to take up the cause of the oppressed of any kind, not just disabilities, and have somebody to fight for, and respect all types of people. and regardless of the situation. And that is and he also talks about how he wants his goal to have our young men learn to love one another and express that love to everyone. We're talking about a football program, right? It just extremely. I didn't expect that conversation. I had heard from Coach Hollis, and I'd gotten his name and said, "Hey, you really need to check out Coach Hollis because he does some really good things." But he's doing phenomenal things. The players that they may not realize it, but the parents, the players that get to play for him, you are really blessed to be able to play under a guy like that is doing that. And I don't care what the record is, that understands those things and is doing what's best for you as an individual, for the game, for humanity, for all. Really, really impressive individual. And if you listen to that interview and you're like, yeah, boy, I'm nowhere close to that, and it makes you feel bad, don't. He's talking about he's done this for 26 years. He's through different situations, different things that have happened in his life. Like, he's built into this, and he's created this situation, and he's working what works for him. But know that it takes time to develop that. But you can also be adding these things to your program. Your program and the way you run your program is not definite. Like, you can make things better and add little bits at a time to make it better, and realize, like, as he says stuff in there that you don't know what he's talking about maybe doing some square breathing or doing his men of virtue and how he's doing these gratitude things, and you don't know how to implement those things. It can be strange at first. The first time you do breathing, nasal breathing or 4-box breathing or square breathing with athletes, they're going to giggle. They're going to find it weird. The first time you do gratitude, the first time you do have these conversations, you're going to get some pushback from the players, from the parents. It's normal. It's awkward, and it's going to be seem strange. That's okay, right? Just push it. They'll start to see the benefit of it, and they'll push past it. Right. And so it takes time to develop these things, but it is absolutely worth it. As he talked about, he sees how it develops. It creates wins. Like, he sees things that he does in his classroom stuff and his breathing stuff and his gratitude work and his word of the day stuff translates into wins. So it's not all about wins, but we need wins, right? That's part of the job as being a coach, and you want that success. So it's part of it, and it absolutely helps. So a lot of really good stuff there. If you ever have a question about any of this stuff, you can reach out. I'm sure you could reach out to Coach Hollis. He'd be a great guy. I have a lot of programs working with coaches. My Ember to Inferno program does a lot of the same things he's talking about how to help kids and help them develop that mental toughness in a positive, mentally tough way, in a mentally healthy way. I've got some programs I do with individual athletes, and I work with teams as well. All these things, and you can bring me in to work or hire somebody else, and see how I operate it, and then take some of these ideas and revamp it and change it and adopt it to your program. But don't be afraid of some of these ideas. You're going to see that there's a lot of progress around them, and a lot of benefit for it. So, great interview. I really enjoyed it. And once again, I appreciate all of the listeners. Like, share, subscribe, put the message out there. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the likes, the shares, the subscribes, all those things. That's high. It really helps me grow the business and grow the idea, and I appreciate that. So my name is Coach Matt Tillman. This has been the Mental Mettle Podcast, and always remember, forge your metal. So my name is... And once again, this has been the Mental Mettle Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Tillman, and always remember to forge your metal.